This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
I just received a letter from a student who thanked me for instilling the love of math in him. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond. And I'll let our viewers know right up front that we're having this conversation in the warm confines of the General Assembly building before the potential for one or two storms. And I mention that because with me as a guest is Brian Moran, Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. And Brian, by the time that folks are seeing this, hopefully they have dug out, hopefully everyone's power's back on, or maybe somehow it just passes us by. But as we sit here today before the storm, it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
And we prepare for the worst,
yes.
David. It's always best to be over-prepared than under-prepared. So we've started our phone calls this morning with the Department of Emergency Management, the Department of Transportation, as much communication as possible, and we were preparing for tomorrow a declaration of emergency. But obviously we're still waiting on the forecast. We work closely with the National Weather Service, so hopefully when your viewers are watching this, we'll have done everything possible to ensure the safety of our citizens in working with our private sector as well, Dominion and other utility companies, so that we can provide utilities to our citizens.
Yes, well, and there may be more to come before this winter's out. But let's get into some of the issues that we want to talk about, because there are some major issues that are coming out of your secretariat.
We have a number of issues of public safety and homeland security. Obviously, the events around the nation and around this globe impact what we are doing here in Virginia to ensure the safety of our citizens. So we will be working with our legislative colleagues this year to make sure that our budget priorities in the area of public safety are successful. And we think we have put together a really solid package of initiatives, and look forward to working with both Democrats and Republicans to fund those initiatives.
Well, as you think about what's in the budget, just pick out one of what's really some of the major part of what's in your budget.
Well, take for instance a new emerging attack vehicle in the area of the internet, cyber attacks. This is something the governor will be taking on in a national. He's going to be president of the National Governors Association. So this is a global issue, but one here in Virginia we want to be in the forefront of. With our proximity to Washington, D.C., all of our military installations. So we want to work with our Department of Defense and other partners to make Virginia a leader in how we respond to cyber attacks. And so we have requested resources for our Virginia State Police, High-Tech Crimes Division, as well as our Fusion Center, which is a group located within the Virginia State Police that fuses together information from federal agencies like the FBI, as well as local law enforcement agencies as well. And so that's one area where all of our information gets distributed out and up throughout law enforcement agencies to make everyone informed, communicate possible threats. So that alone, cybersecurity resources, we're putting money in the budget to make sure we are prepared in that area. But more run-of-the-mill
Yes, right.
areas, like I'll tell you, our corrections. We have responsibility for our Department of Corrections, 35,000 inmates, about 58,000 on probation and parole. And we want to make sure those facilities are secure. And so we are asking for funds to provide for additional correctional officers. Some of these prisons have really dangerous individuals being housed, and so we want to make sure there's adequate staffing levels to ensure the safety of our correctional officers. We are also expanding some of the things Governor McDonnell did around re-entry. We have the second lowest recidivism rate in the country. Now what that means is those who are released, do they
Right.
commit another offense? About 25% that do not commit another offense. So that's one of the second lowest. We have a 25%, about 24.7% recidivism rate. So, a quarter of them will commit another offense once they are released. We're trying to reduce that number because you have another offense, you have another victim, and we're trying to, obviously reduce the number of victims. And so we are putting resources into more reentry programs so that we can provide more mental health counseling when they do get out, because there is a high correlation between those who are experiencing mental health disorders and criminal behavior. And so if we can address their mental health issues, we can reduce criminality. So that's an area where we are putting resources. We're also, finally, and on this subject, is in our jails. The sheriffs have come to us and said about 50% of the inmates in their jail have mental health issues. And so we're working with our jails to provide mental health services in the jails. A lot of localities do not have the resources to address that. And what you have is just a revolving door. People get arrested, they go to jail for a few days, then come out. They continue to have mental illness, they don't have the community resources to address those, and so we're going to provide some assistance to our sheriffs so some mental health services can be provided in our jail. So, that's just a couple of issues, from cyber, from global threats like terrorism, domestic terrorism, to your local jail and our correctional facilities, and we're trying to do the best we can to, essentially ensure the safety of our fellow citizens.
Sticking with the corrections, I think the juvenile justice part is sometimes makes the news, and if I'm remembering correctly, it seems like there's almost a reduction of the number of juveniles that are imprisoned in Virginia.
Yes. Juvenile justice reform is one of the primary initiatives of the governor's. He has really embraced transforming our whole juvenile justice system. The governor has seen the numbers. We had an independent group come in at no cost to our taxpayers doing a comprehensive study of the juvenile justice system. And the fact of the matter is we are spending considerable amount of money on our juveniles, incarcerating them. We spend approximately $140,000 a year incarcerating one juvenile per year. We have two very prison-like, adult-like facilities located here in the Richmond area. They have about 550 beds. We have about just over 350 inmates. So there's no economies of scale. They are very expensive to run, and they are not built with programming in mind. And so not only are we spending $140,000 per year, but we're not getting any positive outcomes.
Right.
We're locking them up, but we're not doing a good job at rehabilitating. So when they get out, they commit another offense. 80% of the released inmates from the juvenile correctional facilities will commit another offense within 3 years. 80% within 3 years. So not only are we spending a lot of money to put them, to incarcerate them, but they're not getting any services. So when they get out, and this, keep in mind, some of these crimes are bad. I mean, we're not justifying anything they've done whatsoever.
Right.
What we're saying is financially, it's costing us a lot, and they're getting out and committing another offense. So nobody's winning. This is just a bad formula right now. We're trying to fix that. We're trying to provide programming, mental health services, education, some services so that when they get out, they'll stay out. And so that's what we're trying to transform. So we have a big initiative around juvenile justice. We're working with Democrats, Republicans. A lot of conservative groups have seen reforms in other states like Georgia, Texas, Missouri. And so we're trying to do that here in Virginia. I think it makes good taxpayer, financial sense. In addition to these, they're going to get out. They're 20. They get out when they're 21. Some of these kids are 15, 16 years of age. They got a lifetime of crime, or we can try to give them some skills, address some of their behavioral issues, so that they can be productive members of society. So it makes a lot of sense. The governor's all for it, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that happens.
All right, that's clearly the age group to be trying to do something with. I mean, if someone's in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, that's one thing. But these younger people, because of the impact it'll have on society, as well as the potential impact on their own lives too. So that's going to be key. Well, before time's out, anything else on any other areas of your secretariat that you see on the horizon for this session?
I'll tell you, generally, this governor is all about building the new Virginia economy, bringing, attracting business here to Virginia. Everybody prospers when we have a strong economy. He recognizes safe streets, safe communities are important to his economic message, and so he has provided a number of resources to the public safety agencies. We have 11 public safety agencies. Department of Emergency Management, for instance. We're upgrading our technology so that we have the latest and greatest weather servicing and preparation in terms of communicating with emergency managers around the Commonwealth. So we're upgrading in that area. Department of Forensic Science, we're hiring additional toxicologists so that we can test rape kits, so that we can do that quicker, so we can find the bad guys. And so Department of Forensic Science does a terrific job in the area of DNA. Virginia has been a leader. So from the Virginia State Police, Department of Forensic Science, Corrections, Juvenile Justice, Emergency Management, Department of Fire Programs, we're really working all very, very well together and make sure that we ensure the safety of our citizens. The governor's very supportive, and we're doing everything we can to make that happen.
Brian, we thank you very much for being on This Week in
pleasure.
Richmond, and we'll remind our viewers that we actually had this conversation on the 20th of January. Even as some people are rushing out to the grocery store, we appreciate
well,
your
the
being
Virginia ABC store, if I might, they come within public safety as well, and if you find yourself possibly needing something at the ABC, that money does go into the general fund. Do it here in Virginia. So that tax revenue stays in Virginia.
So
we
even
have some wonderful Virginia wine.
Even as all those stores may be closed and people may be rushing to all those stores, including grocery stores, including what you have mentioned, we appreciate your being able to rush in and have this conversation today, because by the time we would have talked, place may be shut down. So thank you very much, and we look forward to watching these key issues and encourage the viewers to watch these issues and be supportive of these key issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
As we welcome our viewers back, a special opportunity to welcome one of the new members of the House of Delegates, Delegate Jennifer Boysko. We appreciate your being on, and we're eager for you to tell the viewers some about why did you decide to run for the General Assembly. We could start with that and then get into telling them about some of the issues you're working on. So why did you want to leave the nice confines of Northern Virginia and come down here to Richmond and be in the General Assembly?
Sure, Dave. That's such a good question. It really goes back to my childhood. My mother dropped out of college when she was 18, married my dad, thinking that she had, solved the path of her life. Unfortunately, that marriage didn't end up as a successful one, and she was left never having a job, not having any education, with 3 small children. She got herself a little job where they made no income, and they offered her for her first paycheck 2 sleeping bags and an electric knife without a cord. So she then went on and got herself a minimum wage job where she had no sick leave. If I was sick, I had asthma as a small child, she would have to pay a babysitter more than me. Eventually, she did go back to school and became a registered nurse, and education has been at the top of her agenda, making sure that I could take care of myself. I know that everybody in the Commonwealth, there are many people who struggle with those kinds of issues, who really need policy changes, and that's really what I've been in public service my whole life. I worked on the Hill when I was in my early 20s. I worked for local government, and I didn't like what I saw in the General Assembly, so I decided to put my money where my mouth was.
Oh, that's quite a powerful
Yeah.
story of getting from childhood to where you are.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is. So welcome, and as we were saying before we started talking, the viewers around the Commonwealth will have an opportunity to, even though they may not have someone new from their region, to know that they're new. And as a father of 2 daughters, another woman who's in the General
Yes.
Assembly too, because our numbers change so little from year to year, and there's a need for more women in the House and in the Senate.
I agree with you, and I think, is it correct that we're up to 19%? Is that your understanding, David?
Yes.
Out of 140 members, 19% of us are women. And I think women bring a different perspective, a different
Clearly
life
do.
experience that's valid and needs to be heard from.
Yes, yes. A genuine cross-section of the Commonwealth would make for a great legislative body. It sure
I
would.
agree with you.
So welcome. And now, what about some of the issues then that in your first year here that you're working on?
Well, I have been fairly conservative in what I'm trying to accomplish this year. I know I just passed my first subcommittee successfully to do a charter bill for my hometown, which would just make some small adjustments.
Right, right. But those charter bills are important to
They
local
are.
government, and the General
really
Assembly
are.
has to act on
Absolutely.
them.
And I worked for years in local government. I understand the needs of a
Yes,
local community.
right.
So I was very happy and was able to report back to our mayor in Herndon, where I'm from, that it's moving on to the full committee. I'm a member of the County, Cities, and Towns Committee, so I'll be able to actually vote on my own bill in committee. Another bill that I had hoped to make successful that I didn't think was going to be controversial was to create a Chief Information Security Officer in the Commonwealth. And had a hearing before Science and Technology earlier, late last week or early this week.
It all
Losing
flows
my
together. It
time,
flows
yes.
together, yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be successful. It appeared that a good number of the committee members didn't see a need for that. But I'm from the technology corridor. I had a gentleman who represents technology talking about how important it is to have that role officially codified in our code, to make sure that people know that we're here, we're serious about our cybersecurity, and it's a top level priority for us.
Yeah, it actually turned out on that particular day when you had that hearing, we had a group of students
Oh,
who,
that's
who were
right.
here, and they had finished making their calls, and I said, there's a committee meeting. And so they came in and listened to the last part of that, and then were asking me questions, and spoke to the Secretary of Technology after that too, and we're talking with her. So as you know from your past experience and from the current one, sometimes it takes a couple of years.
It does. And watching other committee meetings, I watched other people whose bills didn't pass. So I know that the body deliberately moves slowly rather than just shooting things through, and that's the way we're set up to operate. So it's the process, and I think
Yes.
just having the conversations is a good first step, I think. So
Yes.
I'm here and ready to continue working on things.
Yes, I know, and I have personally encouraged people who said, I don't know if this will pass, is if it's an important issue, bring it up, because it always has to have its first year.
Correct.
And if you keep waiting for the first year, it still may take 2
Or
or
3,
3
yes.
before it passes.
That's exactly right. I think so too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And for our viewers who find a time to be here at the General Assembly sometime during the session, they can just see how quickly things move, and with all the bills that you all deal with in your committees and all, that it's difficult to take enough time in 60 days to really give serious
Consider
consideration to every bill, and
That's
to
so
talk
true.
it through, and to make amendments and and change it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned county, cities, and towns. What other committee are you?
Privileges and elections. And I'm also very happy to be on that. I was a precinct captain in my local community for 15 years. Election day has typically been one of my favorite days of the year because I really love the whole process of watching people come out and cast their ballots, being a part of democracy. So I'm very happy to be a part of that. I'm on the subcommittee for appointments, which I do not believe we have any legislation standing this session. But it's a good learning experience. Being new, I think it's prudent to give yourself time to watch and listen and really understand how all of this works. So.
Oh, that's certainly a committee that over the years has a great deal of controversial legislation. People passionate on one side, people passionate on the other side, and probably that will continue for some time as matters are debated and voted on in that committee.
Well, there's so much, we look at, the gerrymandering, for instance, that if every single member of the General Assembly who was an incumbent won again this year, I'm sure each one is a great person, but it just leads me to think perhaps we should look at the way we're drawing our districts. I don't know what the success of that would be this year, but I certainly think it's something that we need to be considering.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that. And out of the 140, 122.
122.
Yeah. 2 incumbents lost in primaries.
Yes.
One in either, well, actually 3 lost, 2 in the House and 1 in the Senate.
Okay.
Lost in primaries. It was in their own party, 2 Republicans,
Right.
1 Democrat. But then once on the ballot for November, it was incumbents win. And that has typically happened, I think, over the years, but I don't know another year that was completely unanimous.
Completely unanimous. So, I like the democratic process being reasonable and fair
Right.
and giving everybody an equal chance. So
Right.
I hope to see some progress on that.
Yes. Well, what about any other matters that you're working on, whether it's a bill you introduced or just some matter that you're...
Sure. I'm a pro-choice woman. I was actually on the board of NARAL Pro-Choice Virginia. This year I'm going to be carrying a bill that would restore the ability for our insurance companies in the exchange to provide abortion coverage. I don't know how well that will do in our current group, but I think it's worth just at
Right.
least speaking out for.
Right.
So that's one thing. A second bill that I think has a lot of potential, probably will need a few years, is a driving authorization card for people who are here legally. I want to make that clear. They're here legally, but they are not afforded the opportunity for a full driver's license. And in this bill, they would have to go through driver's education, make sure that they understood what the laws were. I believe it'll bring out folks from the shadows, but also will enable people to get from their jobs when we don't have public transportation access all over the state, letting people get from their jobs to their homes to pick up their children. Would be also the police would have a record of who they are and understand exactly, who's driving on the roads, as opposed to now where some people are just taking chances and perhaps putting people at risk because they didn't feel safe taking a driver's test or whatever.
Some people may think that everyone who's here legally could get a driver's
That's
license.
not true.
Explain how that's not true.
That is actually not true. People here are on maybe a visa, that maybe a student who is studying here, for instance, folks who may be here under a temporary excuse me for
Is it
losing
more
my words.
kind of a work permit type or work kind of visa or some kind of,
So we have farm workers, for instance, that would benefit from this in the agriculture community, as well as folks who typically are just not allowed to drive right now.
Right.
So,
Well, thank you for bringing those issues to our viewers, and thank you, Delegate Jennifer Boysko, for
Thank
being on This
you.
Week in Richmond, and we look forward to having conversations with you and having you back on the show.
Thank you so much,
and
David.
you can say now in year 2, here's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.